The biggest issue for me is being in a context where people are wrestling with truth and the nature of truth, and then how that applies to Scripture. So a lot of my conversations are around how do we interpret Scripture, how do we interpret Genesis, and trying to help students and young people see that reading the Bible literally is more nuanced than kind of just taking it hyper literally, if that makes sense. So that's really been the main issue that's been a part of the work that I do.
I mean, honestly, the biggest challenge probably is that my students, and over many different contexts, simply find science much more compelling and interesting than church has been able to make faith. And so for them, it's not the traditional, oh my gosh, I'm losing my faith if I don't believe in creation story verbatim. It's like, well, like that's all right, but I'm over here and so interested in what science is doing, X, Y, Z. And so it's more of a challenge for me actually to, like, how do we harness that intrigue and that fascination and that enchantment and connect that? Like, my job is mostly to be a connector between faith and science, and to say, like, the stuff you're loving over there is deeply connected to the heart of God and to your place in the world. I think our job is becoming more and more to be like, there's an art in facilitation and an art in kind of curating a space where curiosity can be the norm.
So I have found it interesting that youth workers seem to have a difficult time even knowing how to engage this conversation. There's not necessarily the room or the permission or the language to really talk about this. And so I think that young people sense the anxiousness of the youth worker. And so I think it's sort of tiptoed around or avoided, or the questions are very, very controlled. And I think when we do that, we really don't give room or space for young people to really be honest about the questions that they have. Space to actually process what they're thinking about, or what it means, or why it's important to them. And so I think what happens a lot of times with youth workers that I see is they want to give information to these questions that young people raise. But these questions run much deeper. It's not necessarily about getting the facts or getting the answer as much as they are trying to process, what does my faith look like as I think about science? How do I look at these scientific discoveries, whether it's something to do with biology or something to do with the environment or something to do with sexual orientation, and begin to ask deeper questions of, like, well, what do I do with that, and how do I integrate it with faith? And so, I think that youth workers just have an anxiety over that, and I think they're afraid themselves, because sometimes these are questions that they haven't really worked through themselves. And so the anxiety that they feel isn't so much for the young person as much as it's their own anxiety, and realizing that there's things that they may need to work through as well. So I would love to see ways where there are more tools, better language, new creative perspectives of talking about this, because I think when we do that, we can actually make sense of this together and create an environment where the faith science topic isn't taboo, but it's actually something that can be embraced and engaged in a healthy way.
When it comes to youth ministry and conversations around science and faith, I think that young people have been open to the conversation and have really wanted to dive in to kind of interrogating where the connections are. And I think probably every youth minister has heard, well, where were the dinosaurs in the story of Adam and Eve? And, as we talk about creationism and evolution and what does that mean and look like, I feel like young people are very much open to exploring that. I think the problem comes in with our larger population, with parents, with our congregations, that we have not necessarily created an environment where people are comfortable asking analytical questions of the faith that may or may not have answers, but definitely help people dive deeper into a different way of knowing and then a different way of being. I think one of the main problems that have come up is that we either feel the need to be right a lot of times, and within the conversation of faith and science, things don't neatly fit into boxes. And so people struggle with that. But I think that faith can offer us, if we're open to it, a way of exploring and experimenting and seeing what is true and what is right for a particular circumstance. And we can learn from the scientific method, for one, of what it looks like to actually interrogate our faith.